So hear me when I say, so hear me, Detroit, when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. I know Donald Trump's type. And are we ready to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win!
Kamala Harris has done several rallies now, and some smart observers have noticed a pattern of behavior. Take a look.
It's good to be back in Wisconsin. It is so good to be back in Michigan. Listen, let me tell you, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. And listen, I am clear. The path to the White House runs right through this state. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. I took on perpetrators of all kinds and had a summer job at McDonald's. I had a summer job at McDonald's. So hear me when I say, so hear me, Detroit, when I say, I know Donald Trump's type. I know Donald Trump's type. And are we ready to fight for it? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win!
Now, that's pretty bad, but I know a lot of you think, it's a stump speech and they're politicians and that's typical. I mean, sure, same day, same suit, neighboring states, that's going to happen, right? Okay, then how do you explain this?
Many of you know, before I was elected vice president, many of you know then, before I was elected vice president, as many of you know, before I was elected vice president, as many of you know, before I was elected vice president, as many of you know, before I was elected as vice president or elected a United States senator, I was an elected attorney general. And before I was elected United States senator, I was an elected attorney general. Before I was elected as a United States senator, I was elected attorney general. And before I was elected a United States senator, I was an elected attorney general. Before I was elected as United States senator, I was the elected attorney general. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. I know Donald Trump's type. 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 I know Donald Trump's type.
Yeah, good job from the editors over at Breitbart there. Elaine, this is honestly a remarkable thing to see. It's not like she's been on the campaign trail very long. She only started doing rallies about, 9 days ago, I think. And it's the same scripted event with the same mannerisms, the same hand gestures. The casual political observer would see a product that's being sold to us.
That's a good analogy. I think what this does is reinforce my earlier comments that a Harris administration is simply going to be a redux of the current failed policies that the American people are living under right now. And that's a war on our domestic energy, a war on our small businesses, reckless government spending that has led to historic inflation, a cost of living crisis that are hurting everyday ordinary Americans. She doesn't have another playbook. It is the Democrat playbook. And that's what we're going to see in a Harris administration.
Yeah, but at least, you use the playbook analogy. Football teams mix it up a little bit. The opening drive from Sunday to Sunday is going to be somewhat different. Otherwise, the defense knows exactly what you're going to do. Akash, this is, I was stunned when I saw these videos because it's so blatant, it's so obvious. And yet you don't hear a lot of commentary about the fact of how scripted this politician is.
No, you don't. And again, I think that's part of her plan, right? That exactly Biden's kind of sat in the basement. She's going to be very scripted, read from the teleprompter, do what works, lean into her strengths. But Larry, here's the thing: the average voter in these swing states might see that speech one time, might, right? Or they might see one clip one time on social media before the November election. And so I think for conservatives, for us to go after the media and go after her for repeating her stump speech is not going to be the path to victory. I think what Elaine is alluding to is the substance of what she is saying. What is she campaigning on, right? It's not even just the flip-flops. It's the Biden record and how the Harris, plan is the Biden record on steroids. You don't like an open border. You don't like inflation. Well, you're certainly not going to like all of those things on steroids. And that's what you're going to get, not only if she's elected, but if you elect her lackeys down ballot in Congress and the Senate, like Bob Casey, right? John Tester, Sherrod Brown, all these Democrats running for House seats. These people are all trying to distance themselves from Joe Biden. But at the end of the day, the platform they're getting behind, the person at the top of their ticket, is Bidenomics on steroids.
I hear you about that, but I also think when you're voting for president, I think the American people have shown over the years that they also vote for the person. I think that how that person comes across is a big part of motivating their vote too. And Chris, we don't live in the 3 network Dan Rather world of delivering the news anymore. I think that because of social media, people will see exactly what's going on here with this candidate.
I do too. And while I agree with Akash, I don't think we can complain about the media to victory. I will say that I think people sniff a phony. I think. Now, I may be a little rose-colored glasses on this, but I talked with Selena Zito from the Washington Examiner, who, knows Pennsylvania like the back of her hand. And I said, what's your sense of this? And by the way, I don't think she's any kind of Trump homer by any means. And she said, Chris, I think this is as close to the Hillary Clinton versus Trump model as anything we've ever seen. She thinks that people see her like they saw Hillary Clinton, maybe worse, because she is so vacuous, she is so empty, she is so lacking in substance, and she's not particularly likable. I will be very curious to see how men, particularly men of color, particularly the men of color that she jailed, she has a really nasty track record. People don't like her. People don't trust her. She doesn't come off as particularly smart. She's a phony. She's putting on that stupid fake accent just the way Hillary used to. I agree with Akash. I agree with you. I think people see and spot a phony. And, Trump, the name calling, okay, fine. But to say fake and keep driving home fake, 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 she is fake. Fight, fight, fight. I fight, fight, fight. You're fake, fake, fake. She is. I dig it.
Akash, one thing that isn't phony is definitely the fact that she's going to be replicating the Biden policies and probably, as you said, on steroids. I think energy is the real key here. You could tell that Joe Biden didn't really have his heart in the whole fracking ban thing back 4 years ago. She's a true believer. And just on energy independence, Akash, I think that that's a winning message for the Trump campaign to try to pick up on and really hammer home for those voters that are going to make a difference.
There's no question about it. Do you remember March of 2021, the American Rescue Plan Act passed, again, with Kamala Harris, tie-breaking vote. She barnstormed around the country saying, help is on the way. Help is on the way. She and Nancy Pelosi. Help came down the way. A couple months later, it was $5 a gallon gas. That is what Kamala Harris wants to do on energy prices. She's been very clear. Again, she's a big believer in the California textbook far-left playbook on this. They want to force everybody into electric cars. And that's simply not going to play in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. So if that's the defining issue of this election, she's in big trouble. We just have to make sure that it is one of the defining issues.
Yeah, and Elaine, as we saw from the market reaction early this week to the jobs report we reported on here on the roundtable last Friday, this is hardly a stable economy to kind of run as, an incumbent 4 more years. Do you think Kamala Harris is, in fact, should she be treated as an incumbent? Because you saw, I mentioned earlier, she's trying to distance herself from the very administration policies she's part of.
Yeah, she's been introduced to us as some new candidate on the scene and who's an outsider, and she's not. To Chris's point about what Rush would say, I mean, she's simply not a new candidate on the scene. She's talking about what she's going to do when she's president. She has been part of the administration that has led to these policies. I actually disagree that this is not going to be about how people perceive personality. I don't think this is going to be a personality contest at all. It is going to come down to those issues, those pocketbook issues. I think Trump said people were going to vote on their stomachs yesterday, which I found interesting because we usually say they're going to vote with their wallets. But stomachs makes a lot of sense because when you go to the grocery store, you can't afford groceries anymore.
Indeed. In fact, that comment from Donald Trump is going to be the centerpiece of one of our segments coming up. So keep it here. Watching the roundtable from Town Hall Media.